By the time the sun climbed over the city, Jordan's back already hurt. He eased himself into the bus driver's seat, the familiar creak greeting him like an old complaint. The depot yard was a maze of buses and exhaust and half-awake drivers in uniforms that never quite fit right. Same route, same streets, same faces, same weight in his chest. He checked his mirrors, toggled the lights, and asked himself why he bothered to pray anymore. He used to pray with expectation. As a boy, he'd been the kid who believed God heard every whispered word. Mama had taught him that. She'd pray over everything: the rent, the food, the neighbors who argued, the teachers who cared, the ones who didn't. She'd pray that their building would stay standing another year, that her son would stay out of trouble, that the world would not swallow him whole. God listens, she used to say, even when you don't feel it, especially then. She was gone now. Cancer had taken her slow, then fast, and Jordan still didn't know how to talk to God without hearing her voice echo in his memory. He flipped the route sign to 27, East Line, Hospital, Riverfront, and pulled out of the yard. Another day, another loop, another chance to feel like he was moving everyone forward while his own life stayed stuck at the same stop. In the unseen space between breaths and traffic lights, an angel watched him. Not from the clouds, not from some distant golden balcony, from a few rows back on the bus disguised as an ordinary passenger. His name was not something humans could pronounce, but if you tried to put it into words, it might feel like steadfast. He had been assigned to Jordan years ago, back when Jordan was still a teenager walking home late and choosing to cross the street instead of joining the boys on the corner. The angel had stood close when Jordan's father left, when Mama worked nights, when Jordan found a Bible app on his phone and started reading in secret because he didn't want anyone to call him holy. He had stood closer still when his mom took her last breath, and Jordan's prayers turned into accusations followed by silence. The angel knew this. God had not abandoned Jordan, but God would not force his heart open either. That was where days like this came in. Days that looked ordinary. Days that would rearrange everything. Jordan's first passengers of the morning were the regulars. That's what he called them in his head. Mrs. Wheeler, with the floral scarf and the cane that clicked on the steps. She always greeted him like they were at Sunday service. "Good morning, baby," she said, dropping her fare in the box. "God gave us another day." Jordan grunted, because he didn't know how to respond to that without lying. Next came Dre and his friends, teenagers, with hoodies up, voices low, eyes everywhere at once. They smacked the stop request tape just to hear it beep. "Morning, Mr. J," Dre said, trying to sound casual. "Hey," Jordan said, "no feet on the seats today." "You got it," Dre replied, but his grin said, maybe, maybe not. A nurse in scrubs climbed on, dark circles under her eyes, a construction worker with dust on his boots, a mother wrestling a stroller, and a toddler who was already done with the day. Jordan watched them in the mirror, as he always did, every few seconds. Not because he was nosy, but because it was his job. Keep them safe. Keep the bus moving. Get them where they needed to go. Not one of them knew his story. Not really. He signaled, pulled out, and merged into traffic. At the first big intersection, the bus idled at a red light. A church sat on the corner brick. Old, resilient. Out front, a sign read in cheap plastic letters, "God has not forgotten you." Jordan glanced at it, then away. "Looks like he has," he muttered under his breath. The angel heard the words and winced not in offense, but in compassion. If humans only knew how often heaven ached when they mistook silence for abandonment. Around 9:15, the trouble started. It didn't look like trouble at first. It looked like a man in a suit at the downtown stop. The man stepped on with sharp movements, like every second was borrowed. He flashed a monthly pass and moved down the aisle, scanning for an empty seat. He walked right past 3 open ones before sitting halfway down. Jordan noticed the tight line of his jaw, the way his leg bounced nonstop. Traffic thickened as they approached the courthouse area. Horns blared. Someone yelled from a car window. A siren wailed far off, then closer. The man's bouncing legs sped up. At the hospital stop, a young woman boarded, cradling a clear plastic bag with what looked like medication and paperwork. Her eyes were swollen like she'd cried recently but didn't have time to finish. She sat near the man in the suit, not really seeing him. 2 stops later, a group of teenagers got on the loud kind, the ones who liked to test the boundaries of sound and patience. Among them was Dre. They joked too loud, shoved each other lightly, tossed insults that were mostly play and a little bit armor. The man in the suit flinched at their volume. Jordan watched in the mirror. "Y'all keep it down," he called. "People going through things." "We people too, Mr. J," Dre shot back, but he lowered his voice a notch. The teenager nearest the man in the suit accidentally bumped his arm while turning to sit. The man snapped. "Watch it," he snapped, eyes wild. "Watch what you're doing." The boy jerked his arm back. "Chill, man. My bad." The air changed. Jordan felt it in his spine. He'd driven long enough to know when a moment could go either way. "Everybody relax," he said, trying to sound casual. "Let's keep it respectful." The man in the suit laughed once, harsh. "Respectful," he repeated. "Right." His hand dipped into his jacket, and for one terrible second, Jordan thought of every headline, every route, every "it happened on a bus" story he'd ever seen. The angel stood. He didn't move physically, not in a way anyone could see, but in the unseen space, he placed himself between the man and the rest of the bus, the way a shield moves into place long before an arrow flies. The man's hand emerged, holding, thank God, a crumpled letter, not a weapon. He tore it in half, then into quarters. "Respectful," he said again, but this time it sounded more like despair than anger. Pieces of paper fell to the floor. The young woman from the hospital flinched. Jordan changed the way he looked in the mirror from monitoring to listening. "Man," he said gently, "you good?" The question sounded simple. Throwaway. But the angel saw 2 paths open before the man in that instant. Shut down or crack open. "No," the man said. He surprised himself. "No, I'm not good." The teenagers went quiet. The nurse looked up from her phone. The bus grew so still it felt like the city had paused. The man ran a hand over his face. "I just came from—" "Never mind, it doesn't matter." The young woman clutched her bag tighter. "Hospital?" she asked softly. The man nodded once. "Lawyer," he said. "Court, papers, doctors. Nobody cares. They don't see people. Just problems." His words came out jagged. "My brother got arrested last year," one of the teens said suddenly, eyes on the floor. "Judge ain't even look up. Just read the paper like he already knew." The man's anger flickered, replaced by something like tired recognition. Jordan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He wasn't a therapist. He wasn't a pastor. He was a bus driver. His job was to keep the bus on time, but the clock felt less important than the moment. He pulled to the next stop and toggled the hazard lights. Cars behind them honked. He ignored them. He turned in his seat just enough to address the bus. "Look," he said, "we all going through something. This bus is the only place some of y'all see the same faces every day. So on here, at least, we gonna try not to make it worse." It wasn't a sermon. It wasn't eloquent. But it was true. The man in the suit stared at the torn letter at his feet. "My mom," he started, then stopped. He tried again. "My mom used to say God sees everything. I told her if he sees everything, he must not care much, because look around." The words were a dare. The angel looked toward heaven, not in offense, but in a silent request. "Lord, help him see." The young woman from the hospital took a breath. "I just found out my child's cancer is back," she said quietly. "I was mad at God this morning. Still am, a little. But I don't know. I came out and saw that church on the corner with the sign." She wiped a tear quickly. "It said, 'God has not forgotten you.' I said, 'You sure?' She gave a small, humorless laugh. Then I got on this bus. Every eye was on her now. Every heart inched open a fraction. She sniffed. 'I don't have answers,' she said, 'but I'm here. You're here. Maybe that's something.'" Dre shifted in his seat, uncomfortable with the rawness, but drawn in anyway. "Mr. J, you believe in God?" he blurted. The question hit like a thrown stone. The angel watched Jordan closely. Jordan thought of Mama praying at the kitchen table, of sleepless nights at the hospital, of the silence after she died, of bills, of aching backs, of buses, of signs that said God remembered you even when you felt forgotten. He wanted to say, I don't know anymore. Instead, he heard himself say, I'm mad at him sometimes. The whole bus seemed to hold its breath. But yeah, he added, I believe. Why? The man in the suit asked. No challenge in his voice now, just hunger. Jordan stared at the big mirror that showed them all old, young, tired, angry, hopeful, scared. Because I'm still here, he said simply. Because y'all are here. Because somehow, we, on this bus together today, having this conversation instead of tearing each other apart. I don't know how that happens without somebody bigger than us, working behind the scenes. The angel smiled, not because Jordan's faith was flawless, because it was honest. The man in the suit sighed, his shoulders slumped just a bit. I keep asking him to fix everything, he admitted. Maybe I should just... He didn't finish the sentence, but the shift was felt. The nurse spoke up. My grandma says sometimes God don't fix the storm, he just sits with you in it. The teenagers nodded slowly, as if cataloging the sentence for later. Jordan turned back to the wheel. We gotta keep moving, he said. But listen, on this route, you don't have to be okay. Just be respectful, and if you need a minute, take it. He pulled off the hazards and eased the bus back into traffic. The city resumed, but something on that bus had changed. Not fixed, changed. At the next few stops, people got off, new ones got on, unaware they were stepping into a space that had been quietly set apart. The man in the suit rode longer than he needed to. He got off 2 miles past his stop, like he just wanted more time in the moving confession booth that bus had become. Before he stepped down, he paused by the front. Thanks, he said, not quite looking at Jordan, for, I don't know, letting us talk. Jordan nodded. Take care, man. The young woman with the hospital bag got off next. She touched the rail, then looked at Jordan. Will you pray for my child? She asked. The question caught him off guard. He used to be the one asking for prayer, not receiving requests. What's his name? Jordan asked. Micah. Jordan nodded slowly. I will, he said, and I'll pray for you too. She smiled, small but real. Thank you, she whispered. She stepped off, the angel trailing her for a moment with his gaze, then returning his attention to Jordan. By early afternoon, the morning's intensity felt like a dream. Jordan had a short break at the end of the line. He parked at the transit center, pulled the brake, and leaned back. His phone buzzed. A text from his little sister. You good? Love you. He smiled without meaning to. He typed back, yeah, long day. Love you too. He put the phone away and closed his eyes. For the first time in a long time, he tried to talk to God without rehearsing. I don't know what you're doing, he thought. But if you really haven't forgotten us like that sign said, don't stop what happened on this bus today. Do more of that. It wasn't poetry, but heaven heard it like a song. On his last loop of the day, the sky turned the color of bruised peaches, purple and orange and gold. Rush hour meant full seats, the smell of fast food, sweat, and cheap perfume, the sound of frustration and exhaustion. At one stop, an older man with a worn Bible in his hand climbed aboard. He nodded at Jordan with a familiarity that made Jordan wonder if they'd met. Good evening, son, the man said. God bless you. Jordan's reply was automatic. You too. The man walked halfway down the aisle, then, instead of sitting, turned slightly and addressed the bus in a slow, gentle voice. Anybody mind if I say something quick? Jordan's instinct was to shut that down. There were rules about that kind of thing. No preaching, no selling, no politics, but something in the man's eyes made him pause. Long as it's quick, he said. The man smiled, like he'd expected that answer. I just want to say, he began, some of you have been asking God for a sign he still sees you. You think he's not listening because the problems haven't stopped. A teenager scoffed quietly. The man continued anyway. But sometimes The sign ain't a miracle. Sometimes it's the fact that you're still here, that somebody looked you in the eye today, that a stranger cared enough to listen, that you made it through a moment you thought would break you. He glanced toward the front, toward Jordan. Sometimes, he added, the sign is a bus driver who lets folks breathe for a minute. Jordan's throat tightened. The man's gaze seemed to look right through him, kind but piercing. You're not alone, the man said. None of you are. God has not forgotten you. Jordan thought of the church sign that morning. Same words. The man seemed to hear the thought. He chuckled. He knows how to repeat himself when we pretend we didn't hear. A few passengers smiled. One or two wiped their eyes discreetly. All right, the man said, easing into a seat at last. That's all. Carry on. The bus moved. The angel watched both men, the one with the Bible, the one with the steering wheel, and heard heaven's quiet delight. Jordan's shift finally ended. He guided the bus back into the depot, parked, turned off the engine, and sat in the sudden heavy silence. His body ached, but his chest felt different. Not light, exactly, but less hollow. He thought about the morning's argument, the hospital bag, the lawyer's torn letter, the teenagers listening when they usually pretended not to, the older man's words. He thought about his mother, how she used to end every prayer. Lord, be with my kids, especially when they don't know you're there. He swallowed. Okay, Mama, he whispered. I hear you. He didn't see the angel standing beside the bus, watching him with something like pride. If Jordan had been able to see the spiritual record of his day, he would have been stunned. Not by miracles of lightning and parted seas, but by small entries in gold script. A man on the brink chose conversation over violence. A mother heard she was not alone in her grief. Teenagers witnessed adults being vulnerable without shame. A bus became a sanctuary. A man whose faith was cracked chose to believe anyway. Jordan grabbed his lunch bag and jacket, climbed down from the bus, and started the walk across the lot. The sky was almost dark now. He looked up just once. He didn't see angels or hear trumpets. He saw a single star emerging in the deep blue, faint but undeniable. It was enough. All right, God, he said quietly. I still don't get it, but thank you for today. A simple prayer. Honest. From the other side of sight, the angel turned his face toward heaven, and the response came not in words, but in a warmth that echoed all the way down. I never left you. Keep driving. I'm on every route. Jordan walked to his car, pockets empty, heart not quite whole but held. Tomorrow, the bus would be there. The regulars would climb on. The city would roar. And somewhere between the depot and the last stop, between anger and mercy, between doubt and belief, faith would keep quietly choosing to show up, sometimes in words, sometimes in tears, sometimes in the hands of a tired bus driver who still believed just enough to keep going. And that, in heaven's eyes, was more than enough. If this story encouraged your heart or gave you a moment of peace, please take a moment to like this video and share it so more people can hear something hopeful today. And if you'd like to continue listening to stories that strengthen faith, bring comfort, and remind us that God is near, please subscribe to this channel. Your support helps these stories reach others who may need encouragement. Thank you for listening. May peace stay with you until we meet again.